welcome to Explore Music, where we will discover and learn about traditional and cultural music of specific regions or countries of the world. Today, we're exploring the music and dance of traditional Sweden. Sweden is a Nordic country located in the central part of the Finno-Scandinavian peninsula. It borders Norway and Finland and is connected to Copenhagen, Denmark by the half-tunnel, half-bridge, railway and motorway called the Øresund Bridge. Sweden is the fifth largest country in Europe by landmass, but only the 15th largest in population. Historically, Sweden has been split into three main regions, with the north being called Norrland, the middle Svealand, and the southern part Gotland. Norrland, including Lapland, are home to the Sami people, descendants of Uralic tribes that migrated around 1000 BC. The lower part of Sweden was inhabited by northern Germanic tribes in the last few centuries BC. The southern part of Sweden was made up of petty chieftains under various kings and leaders until around 970 AD, when Eric the Victorious became the first widely recognized monarch of Sweden. His son Olaf the Swede is credited for being king of Svealand and some of Gotland, where the Geats or Goths lived. Around 1000, Sweden became a Christian nation and through the Middle Ages allied with Norway and Denmark, conquering lands of present-day Finland and led Viking raids on the coasts of near and far northern Europe. Sweden has been recognized as a main source of Norse culture that spread to Norway, Finland, Iceland, and the Faroe Islands. This means that traditional Swedish music is closely related to Norway's music and culture, revolving around open fourths and fifths, usually with the tonal centers of D or A in major, minor, or modal songs. This came from early Middle Ages church chants after the spread of Christianity from Central Europe. The Sami people of the north have their own distinct culture and music, which they have been able to keep alive for many centuries. One very unique aspect of their music is the vocal technique known as yoke. Yoke is a special vocalization that can be improvised alone or in a group. It has traditionally been used in spiritual settings and rituals to communicate with the spirits of the north. Somewhat similar in style, the Germanic people of Sweden developed Kulning. Kulning is an ancient herding call used to gather grazing livestock from the mountainsides and forests. A study was done to compare Kulning singing to head voice or falsetto singing. It was found that Kulning singing produced clear partials in the high register, and the decibel decrease over distance was considerably lower than normal falsetto singing. This gives Kulning a unique ringing quality that would travel for miles. Kulning has been traditionally performed by women because they took care of the livestock in medieval Scandinavia, but men are known to perform it as well. Sweden is home to quite a lot of original instruments that are similar to other Scandinavian instruments. The use of a fiddle has been very popular in traditional Swedish music. One specific Swedish fiddle is the latfiol. The latfiol is a very old instrument and is similar to both the modern violin and the Norwegian hardanger fiddle. The difference is that the Swedish latfiol commonly has two sympathetic strings that run under the fretboard with four played strings. Latfiol translates to tune fiddle in Swedish, and these instruments are commonly used in folk music instead of modern violins. Another Swedish instrument similar to a violin is called the troskelfiol or clog fiddle. The clog fiddle is from the southernmost tip of Sweden, and the body was traditionally made from a wooden clog shoe. Another bowed Swedish instrument is known as the Nyckelharpa. The Nyckelharpa translates to keyed fiddle and has been around since the late medieval era. It has four bowed strings, usually tuned C, A, C, G. Underneath those strings, there are 12 sympathetic strings, which give the instrument an ethereal, resonant sound. The keys push a horizontal fret onto the bowed string, changing the pitch by half steps. Commonly, a Nyckelharpa might have the top or top two strings keyed, but the instrument can have 4 rows of keys to affect each string. The Harpa is an earlier, more primitive version of the Nyckelharpa that is without sympathetic strings. The dredgelir is an instrument similar to what is now called the Hurdy-Gurdy. Hurdy-Gurdys have a hand-cranked wheel that is rosined and continually plays the strings, creating a drone effect, while the left hand plays the melody string against the neck. One last stringed Swedish instrument worth mentioning is the Swedish lute. The Swedish lute is derived from medieval and Renaissance citterns and was made more well known by the 18th century Swedish musician and composer Carl Michael Bellman. Most modern Swedish lutes have 6 strings on the fretboard and 4 or more low strings attached to the neck, similar to an Italian theorbo. Some aerophones came out of Sweden as well. The Härjedalspipa and Spelespipa are traditional fipple flutes, each usually having 6 finger holes. The Spelespipa was used first by nomadic cultures of northern Sweden and is in a modal tuning. The Härjedalspipa was created in the late 1800s and tuned to be more compatible with Western tonal music. The Näverlapp is an interesting instrument. It only consists of a piece of birch bark that sits inside the mouth between the lips and bottom teeth. When fast air is blown over the top, it makes a sound similar to a kazoo or a buzzy clarinet. The last instrument I'll mention are the Swedish bagpipes. These bagpipes are considered small compared to most other bagpipe types and were widespread throughout Sweden during the medieval era. The bagpipes' use started to die out until the 20th century when they only existed in the Dalarna region. They have now been revived and many players will play traditional music in order to earn the riksspelman. The riksspelman is a badge of honor given to traditional Swedish folk musicians. Traditional dance of Sweden has had influence from older Nordic dances and Central European styles as well. Gammaldans translates to old-time dances and consists of Swedish-style waltz, hambo, schottisch, snua, polka, and mazurka. Gillisdans is another group of dances that have longer dancing sequences. The Scandinavian polska dance is a distinct partner dance in 3/4 time signature and may have different names and variations in each Scandinavian country. The polska is traced back to Polish court dance influences in the early 1600s and is not to be confused with the Czech and Bohemian style dance called polka, which is performed in a quick 2/4. Polskas are usually performed by couples in a larger group, either in a single spot or moving in a circle around the dance area. Swedish polska have 3 main variants, being a 16th note polska, an 8th notes polska, and a triplet polska. Most polskas are recognized by having a strong beat on 1 and 3, where the main movements or steps happen. Swedish Gånglåt is another popular form of dance in Sweden. Gånglåt is a couple dance performed in a simple meter, commonly 2/4 or 4/4, and translates to walking tune. This music usually features a simple melody and a multiple-part harmony performed by fiddlers. The Snoa dance translates to rotate or turn and is mainly a spinning partner dance in 4/4 duple meter. The hambo is a relatively recent Swedish dance originating in the late 1800s and is considered to be part of the Gammaldans. The hambo is a couple dance performed in a quick 3/4 time signature with a strong first beat. There are many styles and variations of Swedish traditional dance. If you'd like to learn more about any of these styles and more Nordic dances, check out the links in the description below. The classical music scene in Sweden began in the early 18th century with Baroque composer Johann Heinrich Roman. He has been called the father of Swedish music or the Swedish Handel. At a young age, he became proficient in violin and oboe playing. He is perhaps most well known for composing Drottningholm music, or music for a royal wedding. He wrote 33 movements and directed the 24-piece royal orchestra to perform during the 3-day-long wedding celebration of Swedish Crown Prince Adolf Fredrik and Princess Louise Ulrika of Prussia. Born a little after Roman was Carl Michael Bellman, a very well-known Swedish composer, entertainer, musician, and poet. He grew up in Sweden, being of Swedish and German heritage. He is well known for singing and playing the cittern to his poems, mainly about alcohol and love affairs, but he was also known to sing about humor and satire. Bellman has become a central figure of late Baroque literature and music of the Scandinavian and Central European areas. Joseph Martin Krauss was a German-born Swedish composer who lived a fairly short life and has been called the Swedish Mozart. Krauss became a conductor of the Royal Swedish Opera and wrote the music for the opera Proserpine. Krauss became known to Swedish King Gustav III, and they became somewhat friends. Krauss wrote and conducted the music for King Gustav's funeral. Krauss was a violinist himself and wrote a few symphonies, chamber works, and piano solos. The Romantic era in Sweden brought forth other composers and conductors who mainly wrote symphonies, chamber works, operas, and piano sonatas like Franz Berwald and Wilhelm Stenhammar. Some other composers actually led different professions, like Kurt Atterberg, an engineer, and Hugo Alfvén, a painter and writer. Music in Sweden throughout the 20th century began incorporating many different genres, including jazz, pop, hip-hop, rock, reggae, punk rock, and heavy metal. Prog, being short for progressive, was a left-wing musical movement occurring in Sweden from the late 1960s to the end of the 1970s. The most famous pop group from Sweden is ABBA, a four-piece disco group dominating the sound of the 1970s. In more recent decades, Sweden has been a place for electronic dance music. Swedish musician and remixer known as Avicii was voted the 6th best DJ in the world in 2012. Thanks for watching Explore Music Sweden. For more information about Sweden's traditional music, be sure to check out the links in the description of additional resources and footage. If you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Explore Music. You can also check out our website at exploremusiconline.weebly.com to contact and support us. We now have a running podcast on Anchor, Spotify, or wherever you choose to listen to podcasts.